From the perpetual bungling of Henry, we move to his son, Hammer of the Scots, a monarch with a penchant for ruthlessness and a knack for turning brutality into an art form. Known as Longshanks due to his impressive height, Edward wasted no time proving that he was every bit as relentless as his father was ineffectual. Born on the 17th of June, 1239 in the Palace of Westminster, Edward Beprar inherited a kingdom embroiled in the aftermath of his father's numerous blunders. But Edward was not content to simply clean up Henry's mess. He sought to leave his indelible mark on history through conquest, subjugation, and an unyielding grip on power. Edward, as crown prince, went on a crusade to gain some glory, but unluckily for him, the Muslim states were under the leadership of the ferocious Baibars, who famously stopped the Mongols' westward expansion by shattering their army at the Battle of Ain Jalut. Edward was no match for such a creature, so after several humiliating defeats and attempted assassination by the assassins, Edward ran back to England, learning the lesson that the Middle East is a place best avoided by conquering outsiders. Though the Ninth Crusade failed, Edward's return to England coincided with the death of his father and a hardened resolve to rule with a firm hand. One of Edward's early achievements as king was to conquer Wales. The Welsh princes had long been a thorn in the side of the English crown, and Edward decided it was high time to pluck it out. Through a series of brutal campaigns, including the construction of an impressive network of castles designed to impose English dominance, Edward crushed the Welsh. By 1284, Wales was effectively annexed, and Edward celebrated by parading the severed head of the Welsh leader, Llywelyn ap Gruffydd, through the streets of London. Edward then turned his attention to Scotland, and on the 10th of May 1291, Scottish nobles recognized the authority of Edward Burt. He had planned to marry off his son to the child queen, Margaret of Scotland, but when Margaret died, the Scottish nobles agreed to have Edward select her successor from the various claimants to the throne, and he chose John Balliol. Edward summoned John Balliol to do homage to him in Westminster in 1293 and made it clear he expected John's military and financial support against France. Balliol did not accept this and entered into a pact with France and prepared an army to invade England. Edward gathered his largest army yet and razed Berwick, massacring its inhabitants. He next went to Dunbar and Edinburgh. The Stone of Destiny, on which Scottish kings were crowned, was removed from Scone Palace and taken to Westminster Abbey, where it stayed until 1996. Balliol gave up the Scottish crown and was imprisoned in the Tower of London for 3 years before going to his estates in France. All freeholders in Scotland had to swear an oath of homage to Edward, and he ruled Scotland like a province through English viceroys. Edward's campaigns in Scotland were marked by ruthless efficiency, earning him the moniker Hammer of the Scots. His invasions were a masterclass in medieval brutality, with notable highlights including the capture and execution of the Scottish hero William Wallace. Wallace's dismembered body parts were sent to different parts of England as a gruesome reminder of Edward's dominance. Talk about overkill. Edward's domestic policies were no less draconian. In 1290, he expelled the Jews from England, a move driven by a mix of religious zealotry and financial expedience. This expulsion was accompanied by the confiscation of Jewish property, conveniently filling Edward's coffers and freeing him from his debts to them. His treatment of his nobility was equally ruthless. He was quick to crush any dissent and had little patience for rebellious barons. Despite his reputation for brutality, Edward had a softer side, at least when it came to his family. He married Eleanor of Castile in 1254, and their marriage was notably affectionate by the standards of the time. When Eleanor died in 1290, Edward was genuinely grief-stricken. He commissioned the construction of 12 elaborate crosses, known as the Eleanor Crosses, to mark the route of her funeral procession from Lincoln to Westminster Abbey. It was an uncharacteristically sentimental gesture from a king better known for his iron fist. His second marriage, in September 1299, was to Marguerite of France, the daughter of King Philippe III of France. It produced 3 children. Edward's later years were marked by continued conflict and relentless military campaigns. He sought to impose his will on France, leading to protracted wars that drained the royal treasury and strained the kingdom's resources. His health deteriorated, but his ambition remained undiminished. Sadly, for Edward's enfeebled latter years, all that blind brutality appears to have finally taken its inevitable toll on the aging conqueror. His terminal campaign to subjugate the Scots in 1307 saw the ailing monarch spend weeks hunkered in lousy field encampments, exposed to the elements, suffering from dysentery and other ailments. This rampant overexertion ultimately proved too much for his failing constitution, with contemporary accounts depicting the once mighty Longshanks wheezing out his last breaths in a humiliating litter, swollen beyond recognition, the quintessential image of the human wreckage caused by a lifetime spent mindlessly pursuing martial vanity over sensible statesmanship. In his final days, Edward gave his son a rather gruesome set of instructions. His body should not be buried until Scotland was fully conquered. He ordered that his bones be carried at the head of the English army until the Scots were utterly defeated, a macabre testament to his lifelong obsession with conquest. Edward, the king who could hammer down his enemies but never quite learned to win their hearts. His reign was a testament to the power of sheer force and a cautionary tale of what happens when brutality trumps diplomacy.